Will a woman sit atop both political parties in their race to the White House? The giant leap for Republican candidate Carly Fiorina in brand new polling, and the sudden slide for some names you may know well. I'm Harris Faulkner. This is the Fox Report. Donald Trump is leading still, but his lead now shrinking, according to the latest polling, taken after the GOP debate and just out today. Fiorina is overtaking Dr. Ben Carson following her strong debate performance. The question to registered voters: who do you want to see win the GOP nomination? 24% of Republicans and Republican-leaning independents want Trump for the nomination. That's down from 32% before last week's debate. Fiorina is second with 15%. Dr. Carson dropping to third place. And in fourth place, a big surge for Marco Rubio. The Fox News political insiders are here early on this Sunday. Doug Schoen, former pollster for President Bill Clinton and Fox News contributor, joining us via satellite from sunny California. John Leboutiller, former Republican congressman for New York. Pat Caddell, a former pollster for President Jimmy Carter and Fox News contributor. John, I'm going to come to you first. Looking at Republican and Republican-leaning independents liking Carly Fiorina a lot. Why?
Well, it tells us a lot about the state of the GOP at the moment. Complete turmoil and flux about what to do to fix the problems of America. They've rejected the establishment. That's why the establishment candidates are not doing well. And they want an outsider. We know this. It's the new thing everyone's talking about. We've been talking about it, right, Pat, for 4 years. We have Trump, we have Fiorina, we have Carson, and we have Ted Cruz as sort of an outsider. But inside that, I think Doug would say we have an outsider primary going on. And inside it, there's turmoil in there, too, over which one is the right one. So a week ago, 40% of Republicans didn't even know who Fiorina was. Now they saw her do a good job on the debate, and a lot of them say, okay, I'll try her out.
All right, so when you ask voters who they want for the nomination, they're thinking, how is that person going to stack up against the front runner or somebody who might be running against you among the Democrats? Doug, I want to ask you, how do you think Fiorina stacks up against, say, Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden, if he gets in?
Well, I think she is a very compelling candidate. She had a very strong message, Harris, in the debate. And I think woman to woman, it creates a contrast that she's been exploiting to date against Hillary Clinton. I think we have to underscore what John said. This is a race in flux. Trump still had a lead on every issue tested: the economy, immigration, foreign policy. And I would not at this point make any definitive judgment, save to say 53% of the electorate is for a candidate on the Republican side who's never spent one day in elective office. That speaks volumes about how the political class is viewed.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, too, Pat, when you look at Donald Trump, he's now talking specifically and directly to evangelicals. What is it about that particular part of the vote, do you think, that he's seeking right now?
Well, everybody in Iowa is seeking it because it's a huge part of the constituency in Iowa and in South Carolina and in some other states. And he's trying to speak to it because they probably are the decisive group. Look, his vote, despite the attacks on him as being too liberal or whatever, is not ideological. It is more along the lines that we were discussing here, and Doug just did, the outsiders and the insiders. But here's an interesting point, which tells you the fact that, as Doug mentioned, Trump was winning on immigration, the economy, and jobs. By almost, he was 30 points ahead of everybody. He was in the mid-40s. But his vote isn't there anymore because now he has real competition. And it may be people think, yeah, well, I think he's on the best position, but I'm not happy with what he's saying. We don't know. There's not enough in that data. But there is enough to know that the vast majority of Republicans want something different. And the party's on the verge of blowing anyway.
I want to get to this next point. Okay, so the polling also asked all Americans, political party aside, who they liked. Number one, Dr. Ben Carson. 40% say they like him. Jeb Bush, Carly Fiorina each have 34%. Governor Chris Christie, Senator Marco Rubio rounding out the top five with 32% each. Brewing all day long, though, since the doctor said them, are comments about Muslims. And they may develop into a headwind for Dr. Carson this week. Here's what he said, then we'll talk about it.
I would not advocate that we put a Muslim in charge of this nation. I absolutely would not agree with that. Congress is a different story, but it depends on who that Muslim is and what their policies are, just as it depends on what anybody else says.
I know you guys are coming back, but I want to get your quick reaction.
Well, I think that inside the Republican primary electorate, that is the position of about 80% of voters.
And it's big. Well, it's also the case for a majority of voters. Look, ever since the days of the mosque down at Ground Zero, every time you study an issue on the question of Islamic extremists in the United States and the danger, it's very high. It is only with the commentaria, if you will, as someone calls them, the chattering class of PC people, is there a difference? We're talking about bringing, last week we were going to bring 10,000 people in, now we're going to bring 100,000, and we can't take care of our veterans.
You're talking about the refugees.
The refugees,
right, yeah.
We can't take care of our veterans. We have total incompetence with our emails, everything. And the government is going to not do these people? My thing is, bring the Christians. Those people need to come here.
So what I hear you both saying is this potentially won't be headwind for him. And real quickly, Doug, could this be something that others have to react to? So it kind of backfires in a way in terms of those people who would criticize Dr. Ben Carson.
Yeah. Yes, I would say this tied in with the whole issue of immigration from the southern border that Donald Trump and others have talked about creates a new huge potential issue for Republicans to talk about, because Pat is exactly right. I am a humanitarian. I want to admit people, particularly refugees, but 100,000 Muslims, no vetting at a time when our social services are being overrun. I mean, Harris, this is a huge, huge issue that is only now just being aired, and hopefully we'll get back to it later on tonight.
I'm going to have to step in to move on, but we'll be talking about the refugee situation also in our news reporting a little bit later. Guys, the political insiders later on Fox Report, you'll see them as you do each week later this hour.